Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday morning. It is Father's Day today here in the States, and it is. I doubt that's like an international um, holiday, but it might be. But it is June 21st, 2026, Father's Day Sunday, and we are working on Angular code, and specifically on this page here. Add viz, click your this page right here. And yesterday we spent a good bit of time, basically like 2.5 hours, basically lifting and shifting everything that was in here into it was kind of hanging out just like this, but into this um, component. So basically, before this used to be this we had the layout viewer, and then we had a toolbar, and then we had this down here. And now we have, and so those were all like just on here, and now um, we moved everything that was in here into this component, which was so much harder than it should have been. And the reason I could tell you right now exactly why, and it's because um, I deeply coupled data in here that had been in here to this TypeScript. And so now I'm kind of starting to visualize something that I should have probably, like, it's one of those weird things that's like kind of right in front of your face for years and years and years. And then you're just like, man, I never noticed this before. But the thing is like we really have like three kinds of components here. One, we have like a parent component, and I don't know what the best way is. Some people might call it an orchestrator component, but it's really more of like a layout control or layout manager component. Like its main job is to provide like this skeleton here. This div is our visualization class. It's a viewer. This is our toolbar area, and this is our editors. So that's really this job is like UI, user interface layout is really what it does. And um, I don't know why that has never been really obvious. And then we have these child components, and these child components are like, just components, very specialized components that are specific for my needs. And then you have like if you go into the layout viewer, you'll see we have another app viz component. And the app viz component is the fascinating one because it's not really a layout control component manager controller. I don't know what you'd want to call it, orchestrator. And it's not like a specialized child component. It's a reusable like web component, right? Like it takes very specific things and it does stuff with it. And that is, in my opinion, probably the only time. And I don't know, like this is sort of an off the cuff rule that I'm going to kind of try to function under for a little while. I don't have any experience with it, but it seems to like be reasonable. And the reasonable rule that I think might be a good rule is if it's a reusable component, you have inputs. But if it's not a reusable component, then you probably shouldn't have inputs. And there's one small um, small exception to that, and the one small exception is if you're absolutely sure that it's a not reusable, it's a custom component that's not designed for generic use. Maybe that's what this should be called, like a generic component. But that's not designed for generic use, and you have some reason to know that it will never, ever, ever need to be broken down into smaller components. That's to me the only time that you would ever use inputs in a component that isn't a generic reusable component. Um, but for the most part, it's probably better to have like a component service pairing. Now, the piece of the puzzle that I'm missing, and it's just I'm waiting for something for it to present itself, is that um, all my services right now are like for root, so that means they're for everybody and all that, which makes it very difficult to make like a reusable collection component collections. And I guess the kind of like I was thinking about like here in the United States, I don't know if this is how it works every place else, but we do have these areas called suburbs. So they're not quite urban. So like in an urban area, you would like very often have like a road and a giant apartment complex or a giant skyrise or something like that with lots and lots of people living in there and lots of families and different types of scenarios. But in suburban areas, what we have is like we have a road and then like little driveways off of the road. And then off of the road, off at the end of each one of those driveways is a one, some every once in a while there might be more than one, but for the most part, almost always it's a one-to-one relationship. You have the road, you have a driveway, you have a house. That's how it works. Now, all the houses all have very similar things in them. They all have a kitchen in them. They all have things like that. So in this scenario, like the house is the top level thing. It's like the container. It holds things. It decides that, okay, we're going to have like a split floor plan where when you walk in the door, you can either go upstairs or downstairs, or we're going to have this or we're going to have that. The house kind of handles just like the layout of everything. But individually in there, there's like a bathroom and a kitchen and stuff like that. And that's the house's bathroom and kitchen. If you want to drill a hole that goes from the kitchen to the bathroom or to the attic or something like that, you can. That's yours. You can do whatever you want in there. It's fine. And then, but then we have like cars, and almost all the houses will have a garage with a car in it. Well, the car could be in any one of the car is a reusable generic item that can be used anywhere in a similar fashion everywhere. And then, um, so if you decide to make some kind of change to your car, like let's say you decide to put a big tall flag on it, well, then you just made that car unusable to other houses because it won't go into their garages or whatever. It needs to fit into an overall system, but if you modify it, then your risk of it not fitting in some other system that you aren't thinking of while you're working on it, right? Like you have a different mindset. Like if you're making changes to your car, you have to think, oh, I want to resell this, so I want to make sure that it's still a way that is generically useful. So you don't, what you're going to do. Whereas like with your bathroom, it's not that big of a deal to make some sort of change. That's just for you. You don't have to really think nearly as deeply about it. And I don't know, those are the ideas that are sort of popping around in my head. But just to kind of make my point, I've got to make my point. So let's say here we want to move this stuff. So the only thing that isn't done now is our update layout editor, right? And so we want to um, and it's so funny because I'm reading the name of this branch is create an and editor page, so it should be an editor page row between the viz and editor with two buttons. So that was just supposed to be about this, and now I'm like re defining everything. And like sometimes, oh, my buddy Rhett's in here, and I got her a walnut, and it is cracked and open. I'll put that down there for her. There we go. She hasn't got to come in here in a while, so it's been a little crazy for me. I would say this is probably the first day that I felt like I didn't immediately wake up and wonder if I was sick because I felt fine. Felt perfectly fine today. So I think I might be past whatever that illness was, which was probably the worst illness since COVID for sure. It was pretty bad. But anyway, so let's look at this. We want to start lifting and shifting all this over. So like just from a pure, let's just go line by line. So how hard will it be to move line 15 into this app update layout editor component? It's going to be trivial, right? Because it's literally just text. So if you're going to just put text in something, you are safe. You don't really even need to put a whole lot of thought into that because it's just text. There wasn't even markup in there. It was literally just text. If there's markup, at least you need to think, oh, well, will the styles be different or something? But so let's save that And it's kind of a bummer because now that we're working on, when it reloads, it doesn't really create a editor. Now that's fascinating because like, well, it's, yeah, that was weird. Um, yeah, that's wild. Um, I thought it was going to reload and we would lose our object. We remove this stuff. So now let's go into our app update editor. And then let's go into that HTML and then replace it with our text that was in here. Boom. That is amazing that they're able to update this without reloading. Um, that's incredible. And you know, the only thing I could think of that's different, well, okay, one thing that's definitely different is now this is in its own component down here. So maybe it's easier for Angular to figure out. The other thing that's different is that I changed versions of Node, um, and that maybe that somehow is changing things. I can't even begin to figure out. All right, so now this next line. Okay, so we need to get the renderer ID, and in order to be able to get the renderer ID, we need the app layout service. So let's go into, you know, and let's close that one because that's confusing. And really what I should do is do this. Close others, and then open this one, and this one. And we want our service. And we know we're going to need the inject function from Angular core. So inject, comma. And so now that we have our inject, we know that we want to, so that time it had to redraw. Fortunately, we care about this down here, so it's not at this point um, necessary. Kind of wish it was still blank. Wonder if I hit reload, what happens? For some reason, I thought for a while there, it actually was black back there. Um, but I guess I kind of want that though. But anyways, let's not get distracted by that. Okay, so we want this service, right? So this is my app layout service. I need the name of it. And I will say that like these new ideas that I have in my head that should not be new ideas, they should be like very mature ideas that somehow as I was flying up through the ranks of learning different kinds of code and all that, this whole concept of the, this these sets of like a parent and children and a service that brings them all together just sort of either never landed or landed and I forgot it. But anyway, so this is our colon inject. Okay, so then I like always come back, try to always remember to make this a lowercase. It is pretty darn confusing when you look at code um, in JavaScript and like a variable name is uppercase because we just like it's just like cognitive load because no one ever does that. So now we have our app layout service. So theoretically, now I can literally just lift and shift this code from here and move it. We want to move it, move it, move it. So that worked. Whoop, whoop. Tab and tab. All right, now now what's next? What is next? So now this is using the app service, but this needs the publisher service. So we should be able to just kind of come up here, go into here, get our publisher service code. Never tried this before, but this seems like a really good way to do this. Just copy that, come over here. If you're anything like me, every time you do a copy like that from one component to another, you're thinking, oh man, do I need to make this some kind of like, am I violating a dry principle? Um, and I do think dry principle is a very good principle, but I think it is really more of it's not like, it doesn't play well with component architecture. Sometimes a component architecture just, like for example, I don't think anyone would deny that the folks over at Angular know what they're doing. You copy and paste this at component into every file. That's repeating yourself. It just, the dry principle just doesn't, is very useful. Definitely like one of those like checkboxes you really should always um, try to benefit from, but like it just doesn't quite, it isn't as reliable as like a principle that you should just always do in component driven architectures. Component driven architectures, I think at this point, based on everything I've ever seen, component driven architectures are very like kind of are in their very nature boilerplate. Okay, so I'm missing 3 publisher service. Gosh, see how easy that is? Like that's just so easy. You just come over here, and I'm saying this more to myself than to you. And it's kind of weird like that. See how easy that is? Like I think if you went back like 15 years ago, um, that would be like oh wow, oh he's discovered something and he's excited. But I think today in 2026, it definitely comes off as preachy, and I definitely am not trying to preach. I'm more like just trying to like give myself a little bit of a bump up excitement. Um, there we go. There's our 3 publisher service, and then back here. Oop, wrong one. Go back here. Pull in our 3 publisher service, and kind of line this up, and then and save that, and then come over here, save this. What? ST render ID does not exist. You lie. You lie. I tell you. Let's see. So I missed that one. Where at one of these lines, what does it tell me on line 7? I missed whenever I miss something like that, I think I just have a natural tendency to go, oh, okay, I need to tweak my spacing so that I can see things. All right, so we know that this is the same as edit render ID from here. And like in the past, I think the pattern that I used to always sort of drive myself into is to like take something like this, assign it on the TypeScript, and then paste it. Does that make sense? Oh, yeah. No, I'm sorry. Take this value, assign it to a variable in the TypeScript, and then use that variable. That leads to all kinds of just weird timing issues. um, that the Angular team managed to resolve really well. Um, and it's just in your best interest to use them. And update. Easy peasy. Oh man, that's so much better too. So now let's just go back here for one final, like kind of go over. Okay, so there's nothing in here. Right now, everything that happens in this, like there's the little bit of object. So, and this is probably a really good thing. Like, well, you know what? I probably should move this logic over to here. That would like this solved a bug that I had yesterday, but I don't think. And see, that's another thing is it's really easy now at this point to and that's another thing. Um, it's so weird because like I feel like we get kind of programmed by like our like words, like we hear a certain kind of collection of words and it just automatically puts us in a certain mood. And here in the United States, like that's another thing can get very like triggering is probably not the right word, but it just is not a pleasant feeling. So I feel like, yeah, this really should go over here. And I feel like I'm missing a service. And see, I, well, no, it was just upset. So I already have the service. Yeah. But that's pretty darn easy to do. What we just did, that was just like, just move it over. Like this was like one of those things where it's like, I don't know why sometimes moving things over takes literally 100 times longer than I was expecting, and other times it is instant. And that was an example of the instant, and that's because of the way we're doing this. Um, do I need route? Am I using route? I don't think I'm using route. And it is super, like, it didn't used to be like a big deal to me, but man, now it has just become super important to me to like remove logic or remove things that don't do anything. It's because that stuff, like when you're trying to look at it, like you have to take into account, oh, okay, so this thing cares about routing. And then you look at it and there's nothing about routing. That's like you don't know if that hadn't been there, you don't waste brain cycles on that. But since it was there, now theoretically I can now go over here and I remember the problem. The problem we had was that it was creating um, data elements, entity elements, um, about that didn't exist. So if I went to like this data entities and I hadn't even been anywhere, there would already be one. So fortunately, that problem is gone now. And I will say that yesterday we had that bug. It was so I bet you that knocked off having this here probably made that from a 5 hour confusing job that we would maybe get working and then like be like, I don't know why it works to like very clear what was happening. Um, a lot of times adding like those sorts of tables that show you sort of the underlying data and all that is kind of like adding eyes to a creature. You're no longer bouncing around in the dark. Yeah, so that all worked. And then what we couldn't do before is we couldn't add a second one and then go view it. Okay. All right, so this is nice, right? Because now this outer parent control flow UI flow manager UI layout conductor orchestrator, I don't know what you would call it, but that's all this thing cares about. So in my mind, like another sort of like tentative rule that I'm starting to kind of create in my head is like on that parent one, if you're thinking about anything beyond DOM elements and layout, you're in the wrong place. That code shouldn't be there. I don't know that for a fact. Okay, I think that's the case. Those are some kind of rules that I'm sort of trying to create for myself. And in the past, I would have internalized those rules, right? Like I would have gone through this, I would have used my experience to just keep pounding away. And then I would sort of internalize those rules. I would never even make up human words for those rules. They would just like become sort of my muscle memory, which would make me a faster developer, but it would also make me less under like a developer that can't explain things. And I can tell you one thing that while it seems cool from the outside, when you see that guru developer that like everyone's like, yeah, I don't know, you just assign it to him, and he does it or she does it different than everybody else, and it always works like a charm. Like that seems like a cool thing. That seems like something you want. You do not want that. It's a terrible, terrible place to be. Um, Everyone assumes that you're like just gatekeeping and being like a bully. That's how they all perceive it. Um, Now, when I was a kid, like if we were back in the 80s or 90s, everybody perceived that as like a Gandalf type of person, an elite, amazing person, something you should try to strive to be is someone like that one day. No one knows how he did it. He just is amazing, right? Like phenom. We used to love phenoms back in the 80s and 90s. Today, they don't like phenoms. They want you to be able to explain what you did so that they can reproduce it. Like that's the goal. Or I don't even know why that's the goal. That is the goal. I don't know exactly know why. I have this overwhelming desire to apply reasons to things that I have no idea about. But anyway, so this has all the hallmarks of like a layout orchestrator. I think maybe that's what I would want to call it, a layout orchestrator, something that just handles layout. And then when you look in here, the only kind of code you really should see is layout type things, right? Like I don't even think, do we even need this renderer ID anymore in here? No, we do not need that renderer. I don't think we need that renderer ID. So let's delete it here and see what happens. So I guess I shouldn't have deleted. I should comment it. And we're going to comment this one. I mean, we might need to do it. We might need it. I don't think we need it, but we might be like publishing something or something somewhere that needs that information. See, like this, we need this. You would expect this kind of thing to be in here because this is the only one that knows what the size of this is. So, like it's in charge of this layout, so it is waiting for that. Now, is renderer created? Okay, so are we using this? I guess that's the next question mark. Because we may not even be using that anymore. Looks like we are, though. Is renderer created? So we have this process visualization. Uses it 3 times out of the 6. And then this just gets called into there. All right, let's see. Are we still doing process visualization? I'm pretty sure we're still doing process visualization. Let's see. Oh, I guess this is, yeah, all of this. Yeah, we probably do need that. Well, we probably don't need the actual. Okay, so we commented this out and then that's so funny. We have this thing twice. And then we use it. how do we get it? Okay, so it got assigned here. So everywhere we're using it, I guess we should, first thing we can do is this. This kind of thing is very difficult. What I'm doing right now is like one of the most difficult things I think there is you can do in software. And it is so easy to make a mistake that ends up breaking everything else. And if you and but the thing that you have to keep in mind is, and it's like a very high risk, low reward behavior. And the thing you always have to keep in mind is that when you when you it's a very high risk thing, right? And whenever you um I mean, it's a high risk, low reward thing. But the what's really weird about this specific issue is that as it gets hard, so it gets to the point it's almost impossible to do. If you don't do it now, you're just never going to get another chance. So now we've got rid of this renderer ID, but you have to be pretty measured. You have to sort of like really look closely at everything. Um, it's pretty wild that that actually. As you see, like I constantly retest things because the sooner you discover a bug, if you create a bug and the sooner you discover it, the easier it is to fix, usually 99 times out of 100, because you just broke it. So you know what you just did. But if it takes you a few days, like if you're just working along, then you see something's broken and then you're like, "Oh, whatever, I'll worry about that later," then it's going to be so much harder because you don't know exactly. You remember less of what you did. All right, so this line of code, current view, doesn't look like we ever use current view, but this is how we determine if the route has changed. So this does two things, and my little emoticon here tells me that, hey, don't take special attention on this one because this one is actually listening for changes and basically causes all this code to fire anytime this happens. So if you remove the whole line of code, then whenever the route changes, this whole processing function won't happen, but neither will this. And then here's where we process it, I think. And then aspect ratio signal. So I do not think we need this one anymore because um, like this, I don't believe this cares if the aspect ratio changes because I think this was only for showing that. And so that's interesting. So we have to think thoroughly through, right? Like aspect ratio changing doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the screen resizing, right? When we have these buttons here and you click that button, the aspect ratio will change, but the screen didn't. Like the layout will change, but the actual screen itself doesn't change. I don't think this cares about the aspect ratio. I think it only cared about the aspect ratio when it was showing it. Now set calculated aspect ratio uses that, but I bet you we this is the only place this gets used too. And again, this could end up breaking everything. It would be kind of nice actually to have. Okay, so this doesn't do any publishing, so nobody outside of this cares about the aspect ratio. So let's just go ahead and get rid of this. That was probably actual, yeah, maybe part of this. I don't know. Let's see. If we delete this, then it'll be interesting to see if this breaks over here. Let's see. And unfortunately with this one, you kind of have to do some navigating to get actual data. So nothing broke, obviously. Like there's nothing that jumps out at us. It would be nice to have the end-to-end test right now, but it will take a while. That's the one thing that people don't think about. They're like, okay, and then just run the end-to-end test, but they act like that. Um, See, figure out why why we have a viz component. Oh, so we already did that. That was yesterday. We figured that out. Okay, so this gets a lot cleaner. Apparently, we just do something called process visualization. Apparently, we got rid of this set timeout. But we still, like, we update this and we publish the actual element. So really what this does is this publishes the actual element so that the, and I'm pretty sure I think that's for, so that this component can um, know what size to make itself. Um, and I think we still, okay, I don't think we want this comment, this console log anymore. And then does element. I think this one definitely needs to be, yeah, saved. I think so. Const editor does element. Return whatever comes back from this. Update visualization size, which is going to be true or false. But as a side, so this is kind of a side effect, right? I think. Update visualization size. No, it's not. It is what it does. It just lets you know if it updated it or not. Now that's actually beautiful. Now this code would be a little bit easier, I think, to make sense of. Const was updated equals. Because I mean, I didn't know exactly what it was doing. And the biggest reason I didn't know is because I didn't read the name of it. And I didn't read the name of it because I was doing other things. Um, but if I'd have seen was updated, I would have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense. This returns if whether it was updated or not. This, I guess, returns whether it was processed or not. Um, because apparently it was processed if it was updated. This goes and gets the editor, this gets the renderer, and then so we know we need that, and then I'm pretty sure we use that over here. Yeah, is renderer created? Is renderer created is used right there. All right, let's start from the top again. All right, so looks like we can get rid of a couple of lines up here. One thing I do always feel a lot better about any class, any component class that's less than 100 lines of code in the TypeScript always makes me feel better. Um, it always gets weird because, like this, we're wasting 7 lines. That's 7% of my 100 on something that really doesn't do anything, and I'm only doing it for Git, basically, so that Git will be easier. I don't know why that did that. I think that looks good though now. All right, export. Okay, I don't think this line, so let's go ahead and make up one of those 7 there. There's really no reason. Now okay, so we use the route because we listened to that st render. I guess we use all of these things. Republish. Sure doesn't seem like we should be using all those, but like the 3 publisher service. What are we using this for? It's funny because going through these. Okay, so we never use it. I wonder why it's not grayed out. So we can just do this. Or it might be using it in the template. Actually, before we do that, let's go look real quick. Nope, we're not using it in the template. All right, let's get rid of this 3 publisher service. And so we have a current route we have the route and the current route service. So do we use this? Well, I guess the easiest thing to do is just, I don't know why I always forget, just use the IDE. So it doesn't look like, yeah, we ever used that. So we gave up. So we're down to 103 lines. We delete this, delete that line. Now, ST renderer service. Do we use this? I don't even think we may, well, we might use that to get the renderer ID. No, it doesn't look like we use it. Ooh. Oh man, that just got us a long ways. I think we're under 100 now. Yep, 98. And we have some silly lines here. 96. And I don't see any value in any of this stuff, any of this spacing now. Let's see. I'm just trying to do very low risk changes right now. I know I have a high risk um, one in here, but I don't think we need that anymore. And I'm wondering if we're going to need this one. It doesn't look like we ever. Is renderer created? And that, I guess all this checks to see is, does a renderer ID exist? I don't know if that was the initial intention. It doesn't seem like it would be. It was probably, well, maybe that was the initial intention. Okay, so that was broken yesterday. Right, back to the beginning. Okay, so I don't think we need the renderer service. Let's see. Man, we're under 90 lines of code now. Update. And then publisher service. Do we need that? I doubt it. Yeah, there's only 4, which will be that's what you get when you do that. So again, there's a little efficiency bump I just made is I know that if I do a search on the import and there's 4 of them, that means that I'm not using it, at least in the in the types TypeScript. Okay, current route service. Now this one I'm pretty sure we're using. Yeah, current route service. So we're using that one, viewport resize service. Yeah, I've definitely seen that one in there. At app update layout service. Yep, that is our main communication scheme. I don't know if we're actually using it though. If we're not using it, I would like to get rid of it. It definitely is wrong. It definitely feels that we will need to use it at some point, but I don't want to. I want to add it when I need to add it. I guess we need to do a search though. Just skip that altogether. Just skip the whole searching part altogether. Control F. Oh, there's 6 of them. Okay, so that means it is being used somewhere. Okay, yeah, so here's where we're publishing the actual native element. That absolutely makes sense. Okay, we know we're using our editor component, we know we use our toolbar component, and we know we use our viewer component. So I think what used to happen, if I remember correctly, we used to have a module that would sit at the top of these, and then that module would declare the service, and then that service would only be available to everything for that little bundle, that little group. And maybe that's how you still do it. If you want to do that, like if you want to have like sort of a group of them together, and that would make sense because and then I guess you wouldn't call them standalone. Um, so that's good. I think that brings that together. So we ended up giving up a line of code just so that this, when I'm reading this, I could say, oh, okay, I'm returning whether it was updated or not. Um, and then here we're going to say, now there was one issue here, yes. I don't think we need this anymore. And then it broke on line 44. So we'll go up to 44. And then you got to wonder, okay, is this is created worth having? Basically, it just checks is wrong one. So So it's kind of a shame, but this gives the render ID if it's greater than one. That's literally all we're doing. If I was like, I'm not a big fan of ternaries. The ternary, there's a single ternary operator. Not a big fan of it. Only because I find it to be so much like even I think it's 99, no, probably 3 out of 4 times when you create a ternary at some point it's so that you have one line that sort of replaces all of this, right? Well, the problem is that 3 out of 4 times in my experience, you end up needing to add some sort of logic in here, and you can't really do that when it's a ternary. So it's a lot easier from a future maintenance perspective to just have this in here. Now, the nice thing about the ternary, no, I was going to say one of the nice things is um, that it will run. I don't know. It should be fine. It should be pretty easy to unit test this. All right, so let's go here. Speaking of unit tests, it looks like we are right on the verge of needing to do like a whole cycle. And it's so funny because like this thing was create an editor page between like this with 2 buttons in it. And now I just did a full blown re-architecture of this whole thing and made this and really it's a non-standalone is really what the deal is. And it's been pretty exciting to grow that way. And it's just I have a feeling that like it's kind of one of those things that everybody when they first learn about art Angular and all that somewhere early on that whole idea is is um is presented, and I have a feeling that I just sort of bolted my way through before. But anyways, yeah, so I think that we are ready for unit tests next. So that'll be tomorrow. I'll at least get the unit test running and see where we're at. I would guess we will have broken unit tests. I'm pretty sure. I would give a 99% chance that we're gonna have broken unit tests tomorrow, and that is because we deleted functions. Anytime you delete functions, it's very and you had 100% test coverage. It's very, very likely that you're going to have some sort of functions that are being called that don't do anything. Number two, um, we have a bunch of like, um, well, I don't know. I think that's it. I think that's the only reason. And then I do think we're going to have to create a bunch of new unit tests. And that should be, I don't think anything is going to be hard to unit test. This one was already unit tested. I don't think there's any new functions in here. So but we will have, oh, that's the other, we will, because we changed the parameters in some of these. So yeah, we will definitely have broken unit tests. So that's number two. All right, so let's look in the layout service. Is there going to be anything that's hard to unit test in here? Um, I don't know. We might have to write a function for that tests ng on destroy and somehow sets this subscription up with an unsubscribe in it, which should be pretty easy to mock out. This one looks like it's going to be pretty hard, but I think we've already unit test stuff like that. Router, we're going to have to actually pass in a router. So in all likelihood, what will make more sense is to take whatever we wanted from the router, which is just this router information, that's all we want, and make that into another function, and it calls that function. And the other function will take that, which if I remember correctly, that's exactly how it was when I pulled it over. If mode is equal to update, then run it, do this. Okay, and we're going to get rid of these console logs. Kind of want to put myself in a place for unit testing tomorrow. Get rid of that console log. And get rid of this extra line here. Get rid of these extra lines. I guess if you look in code and you see stuff missing like that, it is a bit of an indicator that that the person never looked at the code to clean it all up. So it's a bit of a hint on that. Now this is probably going to be a pain in the butt to unit test. Isn't the constructor? Yeah, fulfilling this is going to be a real pain. And then boom, boom. All right. So that's our service, and then that looks good. Do I need this viz component? Doesn't look. Oh yeah, I do. I need the viz component. I need all of that. All right. And then this has nothing in it, so that's going to be easy to unit test. And then this one just loads these three, so that'll be super easy to unit test. These will just get injected. That's all we have to unit test. That's kind of funny because like a lot of the logic and stuff that used to get unit tested just doesn't get unit tested because now it's in the template instead of in the TypeScript. So we just like moved it to a place that doesn't have unit testing. But anyways, I think yeah, tomorrow we're gonna run unit tests to see what's going on. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.